So today we're going to talk all about automotive AC refrigerants. Now, it used to be back in the day that you could go out and you could buy multiple cans of R12 for less than $30 to complete your AC repairs. Now, one can of 1234YF is roughly about $45 a can. So how did we get here where just a simple recharge after an AC repair can cost you well over $100 as a DIYer? Well, to answer that question, we need to start at the beginning. So the first automotive AC refrigerant that was put into production in 1930 was R12. Prior to R12, AC systems used ammonia, sulfur dioxide, or methylene chloride. These substances were highly toxic, and it wasn't uncommon for refrigerant leaks to actually kill people. So when R12 came out, it was kind of seen as a miracle chemical because it was basically non-toxic, non-flammable, chemically stable, and it was a very effective refrigerant. From a refrigeration standpoint, R12 was actually very close to ideal. It had a high heat absorption capacity, a high heat rejection capacity, it had stable operating pressures, and good compatibility with lubricants and seals. So all of that gave R12 in the automotive space excellent cooling, even at idle with the vehicle not moving. R12 was so forgiving as a refrigerant that from an engineering standpoint, if the system components weren't necessarily sized correctly, like let's say, the engineer got it a little bit wrong and the evaporator was a little bit too big or too small, or the condenser was too big or too small, it didn't really matter. The R12 would, work so well that it wasn't really that big of a deal. The R12 itself was non-reactive, it doesn't decompose, and it was very compatible with all the metals used in AC systems. R12 also used mineral oil for lubrication, and the mineral oil lubricated the compressor very well. Again, it was stable and inexpensive. In addition to that, it was far more moisture tolerant than the PAG oil that came out after with R-134a and 1234YF. Now, the main reason the R12 systems cooled so well is you have to remember those systems were primarily designed around cooling. There was no concern for packaging, emissions, fuel economy, any of that stuff. The only stipulation that those engineers were worried about was making the occupants of the vehicle cold. So because of that, well, naturally, people tend to hold the old R12 systems in very high regard because, well, they cooled so well. Now, all of that sounds great on paper, but R12 had one small problem. The R12 molecule contains chlorine, and when R12 gas is exposed to UV light, the UV light from the sun breaks the R12 molecule apart. Well, that chlorine that is broken off of the R12 eats the ozone in the atmosphere, which leads to skin cancer, more UV radiation, reaching the planet, so on and so forth. So because of that, it was banned in the US as of 1995. So when the Montreal Protocol, which banned R12, was signed in 1987, DuPont, one of the original companies that was involved in creating with R12, got to work on the replacement R-134a. So R-134a was introduced in the early 90s, and by 1995 it had completely replaced R12 in automotive AC systems. And as you would imagine, it didn't deplete the ozone layer like R12 did because R-134a contains no chlorine. R-134a gives great cooling capacity, consistent vent temperatures, it's non-flammable, it's cheap to produce, and the recharge cans that you can buy at most auto parts stores or Walmart are fairly inexpensive. Now, when R-134a first came out, the industry perception was R-134a is not as good as R12, and that R12 was the quote-unquote better refrigerant. Well, that could be true depending on how you wanted to compare them. So R-134a doesn't transfer heat as well as R12 does. R-134a is roughly about 10% less efficient at removing heat than what R12 was. In addition to that, R-134a runs at a slightly higher pressure than R12, and the R-134a molecule was 15 to 20% smaller than what R12 was, making R-134a more likely to leak. The other factor that caused R-134a to have a worse reputation than R12 was the water absorption. The PAG oil used in R-134a was more likely to absorb water than the mineral oil that was used in R12. And naturally, the more moisture that you have in an AC system, well, the worse it cools. But just like R12, R-134a had an environmental problem. It's global warming potential. So global warming potential, or GWP, is a multiplier used to measure how much greenhouse gas gets trapped in the atmosphere compared to CO2. So for example, CO2 has a global warming potential of 1. R-134a has a global warming potential of 1,430. So 16 ounces of R-134a holds as much heat in the atmosphere as 1,430 pounds of CO2. Now, to put that number into some sort of perspective for you, if you were to take the average vehicle in the United States and drive it from New York to Jacksonville, Florida, that would have about the same amount of global warming potential as releasing 1 can of R-134a into the atmosphere. Now, just for reference, R12's global warming potential is 10,400, or roughly 7.5 times higher than even R-134a. So to combat this global warming potential problem, the industry developed 1234yf. So 1234yf is the newest refrigerant, and it has slowly been phased in over multiple years starting in 2011. The early days of 1234yf, auto manufacturers would actually get corporate average fuel economy credits for using 1234yf rather than 134a. So a few manufacturers like Chrysler, GM, and a couple others really jumped on the 1234yf bandwagon early in order to get those CAFE credits. But unlike the hard transition from 134a from R12 in 1995, the transition from 134a to 1234 happened over multiple years between 2011 and 2021. Manufacturers could adopt the refrigerant at any point between 2011 and 2021. 1234yf as a refrigerant is actually slightly more efficient than 134a, but if you were to take two identical vehicles, one engineered for 134a and the other one engineered for 1234yf, you would probably never notice a difference in the real world. In laboratory testing, 1234yf is a few percent more efficient than 134a, but out on a roadway, there's so many different variables that it's impossible for you to really notice behind the wheel. Now, the reason that 1234yf has such a lower global warming potential versus R134a or R12 is the fact that it breaks down very, very quickly in the atmosphere. So R12 actually takes about 100 years to fully break down in the atmosphere. R134a takes about 14 years. 1234yf takes about 10 days. And that is why, the global warming potential on 1234yf is 4 versus it's over 1400, like I said, for R134a. A couple other things worth noting about 1234yf. It takes its own dedicated version of PAG oil that is made for 1234yf. If R134a PAG oil is used with the 1234yf refrigerant, it'll cause issues. What will actually happen is the 1234 will start to break down the oil and actually start to sludge up the system over time. And you're gonna have to flush the whole thing out and straighten it back out, put the right oil in it, put the right refrigerant in it, and start from square one. The other thing I want to mention about 1234yf is it is slightly flammable. It would take a very strong spark to ignite the 1234yf, and if it did ignite, the flame is actually rather lazy. It doesn't behave like propane or butane or gasoline or anything like that. It is a very lazy type of flame if it does manage to ignite. When the 1234yf mandate came out, it also changed how AC service machines operated. A 1234yf AC machine will do an actual test on the refrigerant to verify what the refrigerant is before doing any type of service to the vehicle. Naturally, because it has this self-test function, the service equipment is again more expensive, which again is passed along to the customer. The final thing I want to tell you about 1234yf is that it is a current patented formula. So This product is a joint patent between Honeywell and Chemours. Chemours is again a spin-off of DuPont. So the only people that can sell you straight gas 1234YF, meaning no stop leak, no snake oil additives, straight refrigerant, that is Honeywell and Chemours. Any of these other companies that you will see, like AC Pro, Blaster, name your company that is going to sell you 1234YF gas, they have to add some sort of stop leak to that product to not infringe on that patent. Because again, Honeywell and Chemours are the only two that hold the patent on the 1234YF gas. This, to me, is kind of why this stuff is so expensive. So where does this leave us going into the future? Now, understand what I'm about to say here is 100% speculation on my part. So what I'm saying here could be absolutely 100% wrong, and this is just my own opinion. So keep that in mind with what we're about to talk about here. As I was doing research for this video, I came across some things that seemed rather convenient for DuPont as a company. Now, R12 was banned because of the Montreal Protocol, which was signed in 1987. And at that point, DuPont started developing R-134a. The key patents on R-134a started running out in the 2011 to 2015 timeframe, meaning anybody could produce R-134a in the neighborhood of 2011 to 2015. So before these patents ran out, just conveniently, the legislation was changed and DuPont and Honeywell came out with 1234YF. Well, what's going to happen in 2030 is the patents on 1234YF are going to start to expire. So in my opinion, what you're going to see probably around 2030 when that patent expires is you're going to start to see another refrigerant hit the market. This is strictly just based on what we saw when the patent ran out on R-134a. What you have to understand is this 1234YF gas contains a type of PFAS. So this is the forever chemical that's in Teflon. So I speculate that DuPont is going to create and patent and market a new refrigerant in the 2030 timeframe, which they're going to attempt to market as PFAS free. And it will be regulated into new cars just like R-134a and 1234YF, so they can keep their exclusivity on refrigerant. Now, the other sustainable option for the future is CO2. CO2 can be used as a refrigerant. It's known as R-744. CO2 is what we breathe out, carbon dioxide. The issue is with CO2 is the system pressures on a CO2 refrigeration system are roughly about 5 times higher than what you will see with 1234 or 134a in order to get the systems to cool correctly. So because of that, the system components have to be super robust to handle that type of pressure, which again adds complexity to the system and adds to the cost of the vehicle because that, again, that system has to be so robust to deal with that type of pressure. But CO2 has no PFAS, it has a global warming potential of 1, and it doesn't affect the ozone. The issue is with CO2 from DuPont's perspective, you can't patent CO2 as a refrigerant because it's a naturally occurring compound. You cannot patent anything that occurs naturally. You cannot patent oxygen. So we'll see how that plays out. So hopefully all of that was enlightening as to why we have, 8-ounce cans of YF gas that are 45 bucks a piece. Is it better for the environment? Absolutely. Does it cool just as well? Well, if the system's designed correctly, yeah, absolutely it does. So hopefully that clears things up for you guys, and hopefully you guys got something out of that. As always, guys, if you guys like the video, hit like. If you want to see more content, go down and hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.